A horse destined for slaughter, his life hanging by a thread. Everyone thought his fate was sealed. But then, on the day he was supposed to die, something unbelievable happened. What followed would challenge everything you thought you knew about second chances, resilience, and the power of compassion. Get ready for a story that will move you to tears and restore your faith in humanity. The sun beat down relentlessly on the dusty grounds of the livestock auction. The low murmur of conversation blended with the occasional whinny of a horse. Amidst the hustle and bustle, one horse stood out. He was a chestnut stallion, his coat dull, his ribs visible beneath his skin. His eyes, once bright, were now clouded with hopelessness. Lot 42, the auctioneer called, his voice sharp and businesslike. Aged stallion, not broken, low reserve price. No one moved. The buyers shuffled uncomfortably, some throwing glances at the horse with pity, others ignoring him. To them, he was just another animal, past his prime and too wild to be trained. The only bids came from meat buyers, their faces unreadable as they calculated his worth in pounds. Emma, a young woman with a gentle heart and a soft voice, watched from the side. She wasn't there to buy. She had only come to accompany her father, a rancher, yet her eyes kept returning to the stallion. There was something about the way he stood, defeated but still proud, that tugged at her heart. Sold, the auctioneer called, bringing her back to reality. The gavel slammed down, and Lot 42 was loaded into a rusted trailer. His fate was sealed. That night, Emma sat on the porch of her family's ranch, unable to shake the image of the stallion from her mind. "It's not fair," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He never even had a chance." Her father, reading his newspaper, looked up, his brow furrowed. "That's just how it is, Emma. Not every horse can be saved. But what if he could?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if someone gave him a chance?" Her father sighed, folding his paper. "The world doesn't work like that, Emma. Sometimes you have to let go." The next morning, Emma couldn't ignore the feeling that tugged at her. Her heart raced as she drove to the slaughterhouse. The facility loomed large and gray against the horizon, its fences lined with horses waiting for their grim fate. And there, among them, stood the chestnut stallion. Emma approached the manager, her hands shaking. "I want to buy that horse," she said, pointing to Lot 42. The man raised an eyebrow. "He's already been sold for meat. I'll pay more," she insisted, her voice firm. The man hesitated, but then shrugged. "Your money. He's in bad shape, though. Don't say I didn't warn you." As the stallion was loaded into Emma's trailer, his head hung low, his spirit seemingly broken. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what brought me here," she whispered, "but I promise you, this isn't the end for you." As Emma drove away, the stallion's eyes flickered with something, maybe hope. But could a horse, so close to death, truly be saved? The trailer rattled as Emma made her way down the bumpy dirt road leading to her family's ranch. She glanced in the rearview mirror at the chestnut stallion, who stood unsteady, his ears flicking nervously. With every jolt, Emma's heart tightened as she saw the stallion's frail condition. But she whispered softly, "You're safe now." When they arrived, Emma's father was waiting by the barn, his arms crossed, a disapproving look on his face. "Emma," he said, his tone harsh, "what were you thinking?" "He deserves a chance," Emma replied, her voice firm yet pleading. "I couldn't just leave him there," her father sighed, shaking his head. "It's your responsibility now, but don't expect me to help when it becomes too much." Emma nodded, her face lighting up with determination. With the ranch hand's help, Emma unloaded the stallion. He stumbled a little as his hooves touched the ground, his ribs visibly moving with each shallow breath. Emma gently led him into an empty stall, her hands shaking as she secured the gate. She filled a bucket with fresh water and placed a pile of hay in the corner, but the stallion barely moved. He stood still, his head low, his eyes distant. Emma crouched beside the gate, speaking softly. "I don't know what you've been through, but I'm here now. We'll get through this together." For days, the stallion stayed withdrawn. He wouldn't eat or drink unless Emma was nearby. Her calm presence seemed to be the only. One evening, as the sun set behind the horizon, Emma noticed a change. Phoenix lifted his head slightly when she entered the stall, his ears twitching at the sound of her voice. It was the first sign of life she had seen in him, and her heart filled with cautious hope. You're starting to trust me, aren't you? She said, kneeling down to this level. We'll take this one day at a time. But not everyone shared Emma's hope. The ranch hands muttered doubts as they worked, their skepticism heavy in the air. That horse is a lost cause, one said. He's too far gone. Emma didn't let their words bother her. Her focus was entirely on Phoenix. She knew his injuries ran deeper than just his weakened body. His spirit was broken, and that would take time to heal. For that, she needed patience, love, and maybe even a miracle. One stormy night, the ranch was eerily quiet, the rain hammering against the barn's roof. Emma went to check on Phoenix before heading to bed, but something stopped her. The stallion, who had always stood with his head low, turned to meet her gaze for the first time. His eyes held a flicker of recognition, a connection. As the storm raged outside, Emma knelt beside Phoenix's stall, tears streaming down her face. "You're still in there," she whispered, wondering if this fragile bond could be enough to bring him back from the edge. The next morning, the ranch was covered in mist, the air cool and heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth. Emma entered the barn to check on Phoenix, her heart racing with hope after the quiet breakthrough the night before. As she approached his stall, she stopped in her tracks. Phoenix was standing taller, his ears pricked forward, and his eyes followed her every movement. "Good morning, Phoenix," she said softly, her voice warm. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a handful of fresh carrots. "Let's see if you're feeling braver today." Phoenix hesitated, his nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air. Slowly, he took a cautious step toward her. Emma held her breath, her hand steady as she extended the treat. When Phoenix gently took the carrot from her palm, a small laugh escaped her lips, and tears filled her eyes. "There you go," she whispered. "You're not so afraid anymore." As Phoenix came to a halt near the fence, he turned to Emma. His ears flicked forward, and in his eyes she saw not just trust, but a spark of something more, hope. But would it be enough to erase the scars of his past and carry him toward a brighter future? As the days turned into weeks, Phoenix's transformation became undeniable. His once dull coat now shone in the sunlight, and his gaunt frame had filled out with newfound strength. The ranch hands who had once doubted Emma's efforts began to watch in silent admiration as Phoenix trotted confidently around the paddock, his movements fluid and graceful. One afternoon, Emma decided it was time to take the next step. She approached her father in the barn, her voice steady. "I want to let Phoenix run in the open pasture." Her father frowned, setting down a bale of hay. "Emma, that horse hasn't been in open space in years. What if he bolts? What if you lose him?" Emma met his gaze, determination shining in her eyes. "He won't. He trusts me." Her father sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right," he said reluctantly, "but be careful, and don't say I didn't warn you." Emma led Phoenix to the pasture gate, her heart pounding. The wide expanse of grass stretched out before them, the wind carrying the scent of wildflowers. She removed the halter, her hands trembling slightly. "Go on, boy," she said softly. "This is your moment." Phoenix hesitated, his ears flicking back and forth as he looked at Emma and then at the open field. For a moment, he stood still, as if the weight of his past held him back. Then, with a burst of energy, he leaped forward, his hooves kicking up dirt as he broke into a gallop. Emma watched in awe as Phoenix raced across the pasture, his mane flying in the wind. He moved like a creature reborn, his powerful strides carrying him farther and faster than she had ever seen. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You're free." The ranch hands gathered at the fence, their expressions a mix of astonishment and disbelief. Clara, one of the newer workers, shook her head in amazement. "I've never seen anything like it. That horse was supposed to be dead." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with pride. He just needed someone to believe in him. But as Phoenix made his way back toward the fence, a loud crack of thunder echoed across the sky, startling him. He reared up, his eyes wide with fear. Emma's heart skipped a beat as Phoenix bolted toward the far side of the pasture, where the fence met the dense woods. "Phoenix!" Emma shouted, running after him, with her father and the ranch hands following, calling out in the storm. When they reached the fence, Phoenix was nowhere to be found. Emma's father placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice serious. "We'll find him, but it's getting dark. He might not come back." Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. He will, she said, her voice breaking. He has to. The storm grew stronger as night fell, and rain soaked the ranch as they searched the woods with flashlights. Emma refused to give up. Her determination was unwavering. Phoenix, she called, her voice echoing through the trees. Come back to me. Just as the first rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds, Emma heard a faint sound, a soft nicker carried on the wind. She turned, her heart racing, and saw Phoenix standing at the edge of the clearing. His coat glistened with rain, and his eyes met hers. In that moment, Emma knew he had returned not out of fear, but because of their bond. As Emma approached Phoenix, she saw something new in his eyes, complete trust. But could their connection withstand the challenges yet to come? Or would the scars from Phoenix's past resurface when they least expected it? The morning sun bathed the ranch in a golden glow, drying the remnants of the storm from the fields. Phoenix stood in the paddock, his muscles tense, but his gaze fixed on Emma as she approached with a gentle smile. The storm had tested them both, but his return had proven what Emma had always believed. Phoenix was no longer just a horse bound by fear. He was healing. You scared me last night, boy, Emma said softly, running her hand along his neck. Phoenix leaned into her touch, his breathing calm. But I knew you'd come back. Her father watched from the barn, his arms crossed, but his expression was less critical than before. You've done something incredible, Emma, he admitted. I didn't think he had it in him. Or you, for that matter. Emma glanced at him, lifting her chin slightly. It's not just me, she said. He chose to trust again. Inspired by Phoenix's progress, Emma decided it was time for another challenge. She approached Clara and the other ranch hands with an idea that left them skeptical. I want to train Phoenix for the town's annual riding showcase. The room fell silent before Clara spoke. Emma, that's ambitious. He's come far. But this, it's risky. Emma nodded. I know, but Phoenix isn't the same horse he was when I brought him here. He deserves a chance to show what he's capable of. Her father sighed. All right, Emma, but if you're going to do this, you'll need all the help you can get. The following weeks were tough. Emma worked tirelessly with Phoenix, introducing him to a saddle for the first time. At first, he balked, tossing his head and stepping nervously. But Emma's patience never wavered. Every time he resisted, she spoke to him in soothing tones, her voice a steady anchor. Easy, Phoenix, she murmured. We're in this together. Little by little, Phoenix adjusted to the saddle. Emma began walking him around the path, his steps slow but steady. Eventually, she mounted him for the first time, her heart pounding as she felt his powerful frame beneath her. Phoenix shifted uncertainly, but with Emma's gentle encouragement, he began to move. You're doing it, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. You're really doing it. Word of Phoenix's transformation spread throughout the town, and the ranch became a hub of curiosity. Neighbors and ranchers stopped by, their skepticism melting into admiration as they watched Phoenix and Emma work together. On the morning of the showcase, the ranch buzzed with excitement. Emma led Phoenix to the trailer, his coat gleaming in the sunlight. As they arrived at the arena, Emma's nerves began to surface. The crowd was larger than she had expected, and their murmurs filled the air. Her father placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You got this, Emma, and so does he. When their turn came, Emma guided Phoenix into the arena. The crowd fell silent, their attention fully on the pair. Emma took a deep breath, her hands steady on the reins. Let's show them who you really are, she whispered. They began with a slow trot, Phoenix's movement graceful and controlled. As they progressed to more intricate maneuvers, the audience erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the arena. Emma's heart swelled with pride as Phoenix responded to every cue, his trust in her clear with each step. But the true test came with the final challenge, a small jump set near the center of the arena. Emma hesitated for a moment, her mind flashing back to the storm and Phoenix's fear of loud noises. You can do this, she said softly, her voice trembling. I believe in you. Phoenix gathered himself, his muscles coiling like a spring. With a powerful push, he leaped over the jump, landing cleanly on the other side. The crowd rose to their feet, their cheers deafening. Emma leaned forward, wrapping her arms around Phoenix's neck as tears streamed down her face. We did it, she whispered. You're free. As they exited the arena to thunderous applause, a man approached Emma with an offer that could change everything for her and Phoenix. Would this new opportunity bring them closer, or would it test their bond in ways they never imagined? As Emma and Phoenix exited the arena, their hearts still racing from the performance, a man in a sharp suit approached them. He extended his hand with a warm smile. "Miss Emma, that was extraordinary. My name is Mark Thompson, and I represent the National Equine Therapy Foundation. I'd like to speak with you about Phoenix." Emma shook his hand, her brow furrowing in curiosity. "What about him?" she asked. Mark gestured toward Phoenix, who stood calm and proud by Emma's side. "Phoenix's story is incredible, a horse destined for slaughter, transformed into a symbol of resilience and trust. We'd like to feature him in our equine therapy program for at-risk youth." Emma's father, standing nearby, folded his arms. "That's a big step," he said cautiously. "What exactly are you proposing?" Mark explained earnestly. "We run a program where horses like Phoenix help kids dealing with trauma or anxiety. His presence and story could inspire them in ways we can't even measure. We'd like to partner with you, Emma, to bring Phoenix into this initiative." Emma looked at Phoenix, her heart swelling with pride and uncertainty. The thought of sharing him with others was both thrilling and daunting. "I need time to think about it," she said finally. Over the next few weeks, Emma carefully weighed the decision. She spent countless hours with Phoenix, grooming him, riding him, and sitting quietly by his side. "What do you think, boy?" she asked one evening, stroking his mane. "Could you help others the way you've helped me?" Phoenix nickered softly, his dark eyes meeting hers. Emma took it as a sign. Finally, she called Mark. "We'll do it," she said, her voice filled with determination. The transition wasn't easy. The ranch became a hub of activity as Emma prepared Phoenix for his new role. She worked closely with therapists and trainers, teaching Phoenix how to respond to gentle cues from the children he would meet. His calm demeanor and intuitive nature quickly made him a favorite among the staff. The first day of the program was emotional. A small group of children, each carrying their own invisible scars, gathered at the ranch. One boy, Timmy, stood apart from the others, his shoulders hunched and his gaze fixed on the ground. Emma approached him with a kind smile. "Would you like to meet Phoenix?" Timmy hesitated, then nodded. Emma led him to the paddock, where Phoenix waited patiently. "He's just like you," she said softly. "He's been through a lot, but he's stronger because of it." Timmy reached out tentatively, his hand trembling as he touched Phoenix's neck. The horse stood perfectly still, his eyes closing slightly as if to reassure the boy. Timmy's face lit up with a shy smile, and for the first time that day, he spoke. "He's amazing." From that moment on, Phoenix became a beacon of hope for the children who visited the ranch. His journey from despair to triumph resonated deeply with them, teaching them that no matter how broken they felt, healing was always possible. Months later, Emma stood by the fence, watching as Phoenix trotted around the paddock with a group of laughing children. Her father joined her, his expression soft. "You've done something incredible here, Emma. Phoenix isn't just a horse, he's a miracle." Emma nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "He saved me as much as I saved him." As the sun set over the ranch, Emma knelt beside Phoenix, resting her forehead against his. "We've come so far, haven't we?" she whispered. Phoenix nickered softly, his breath warm against her face. Together, they had turned a story of near tragedy into one of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, second chances could shine the brightest.